This is the Healing Our Sight podcast, where we discuss vision issues and healing strategies from the patient perspective. The goal of this podcast is to create an awareness of the diverse types of vision issues people experience, to highlight the types of help available, and to open a dialogue between patients to show we're not alone in our vision struggles. As a patient who gained 3D vision at age 54 through vision therapy combined with strabismus surgery, I feel uniquely qualified to offer a hopeful, balanced perspective on the possibilities. Please use the link in the show notes to send me a message, and thanks for joining me today. Welcome to the Healing Our Sight podcast. I'm your host, Denise Allen, and today's guest is Hannah Walton Morris, a vision therapist, breathwork facilitator, nervous system advocate, and founder of Wild Wellness with Hannah. Hannah works at the intersection of vision, the nervous system, and emotional well-being. She explores the deep connection between the brain, the body, the breath, and how we experience the world. Through both her professional work and her own personal journey, she helps people better understand their bodies, create a sense of safety, and reconnect with themselves through breathwork and self-awareness. As a vision therapist, she works with both children and adults navigating visual processing challenges, sensory overwhelm, learning difficulties, and concussion or brain injury recovery. And her clinical work has really shown her just how closely our sensory systems, emotional well-being, and nervous system regulation are connected. She's also the author of Untamed Self-Love and the creator of the Wild Woman Gateway, an online space offering breathwork, guided practices, and tools for emotional healing and personal growth. Today, we'll also be exploring the role of the vagus nerve and how it relates to regulation, healing, and the way we process both sensory and emotional experiences. At the heart of her work is the belief that healing isn't about fixing ourselves, but about creating enough safety within the body to reconnect with who we've always been. Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. That was a really wonderful introduction. It's such an honor to be here with yourself and the listeners of the Healing Our Sight podcast. As you shared, I'm Hannah, a multi-passionate woman showing up in the world as a vision therapist, an intuitive wellness guide, breathwork facilitator, nervous system advocate, published author, and blog writer. I know that sounds like a long list of titles, qualifications, and professional roles. Beneath all of those hats that I choose to wear, I'm simply a woman who is perpetually curious about life. From an early age, I have always been guided by my intuition, following my heart and my gut. I wear the title of multi-passionate woman proudly because it's so much more than just a label for me. It's truly a way of being. I've never been just a single expression of who I am, and I stopped trying to squeeze myself into boxes or categories long ago because I love learning, growing, asking deep questions, and exploring the intricate connections between the brain, body, breath, emotions, and the broader human experience. I'm fascinated by the ways that science and soul, physiology and intuition, logic and creativity intersect to shape how we live, love, heal, grow, and evolve. And more than anything, I'm a forever student of life, continually learning, unlearning, relearning, expanding, and embracing the endless wisdom that emerges when we stay curious, open-hearted, open-minded, and willing to grow.
Awesome. I love that so much. I think that a lot of my listeners probably get that flavor from past episodes that I've done, where we're talking about what actually makes vision therapy work, what actually creates healing in our vision, in our bodies. It's all intertwined in ways that we don't talk about often enough.
Everything really is linked together, and some days you'll find me immersed in my therapeutic work as a vision therapist, guiding patients through neurological growth, visual development, and learning breakthroughs, where I have the joy of supporting the intricate connections between the brain, body, and visual system, while also holding space as an intuitive wellness guide, helping people to reconnect with themselves through their breath, embodiment, nervous system healing, and tapping into the innate wisdom that we all have within us. While other days I might be pouring words into the Wild Wellness blog, creating reflections that weave together science, soul, and storytelling, where wellness musings dance along neuroscience, because we all have lived experience, and being human is such a beautiful complexity, and we all deserve that opportunity to share our passions and our love with the world and support as many as we can while doing so.
Yeah, great. Your story is unique in a lot of ways, but one of the things that really struck me was when I found out that your mother is a developmental optometrist. So you actually were born into developmental optometry, right?
Yes, and I feel that this helps to allow others to understand how I look at the world, both literally, metaphorically, and neurodevelopmentally. My roots are the reason I am who I am and show up the way I do today, because I was literally born into the world of behavioral optometry. In fact, some of my current colleagues have known me since I was a bub in arms. I had the unique privilege of growing up in the world of behavioral and neurodevelopmental optometry, as mum was back into the office a week after welcoming me into the world.
Oh, wow.
And in many ways, I grew up alongside the practice. For as
Mhm.
long as I can remember, conversations around the dinner table weren't simply about eyesight. They centered on the intricate relationship between the brain, eyes, body, movement patterns, cognitive patterns, and sensory systems, and how these connections shape the way that we learn, develop, perceive, and make sense of reality.
Mhm. Yeah. So it sounds like what was normal for you was completely different than what most people would have experienced because so many people don't even know that there's vision therapy, much less that all of these other factors come into play in a vision therapy office or in, just our quest for healing.
And from an early age, I mentioned that intuition guided me, but I've always been a deep thinker and feeler. And I was really thankful to have been immersed in a world that viewed human potential through a lens far broader than just sight alone and how clearly someone is seeing. Growing up in an environment that taught me something profound, that our eyes are not just isolated cameras that are taking snapshots of the world. They are extensions of our brain and our central nervous system.
Mhm.
And I was able to witness firsthand how subtle shifts in visual tracking, spatial awareness, binocular coordination, and sensory integration could dramatically influence a person's behavior, confidence, learning ability, emotional regulation, and overall sense of safety within their environment.
Mhm. You know, that reminds me of an experience I had a few years ago. It was the year after my husband passed. I went to visit my cousin, and she hadn't seen me or been around me since I had had vision therapy, surgery, vision therapy, and gotten 3D, And her husband, after he talked to me for a while, he's like, "You are different than you were before." And I said, "Oh, really? How so?" And and he said, "You just have a different way about you. You're just more confident. You're just" and I just thought, "Oh, well, isn't that nice?" But you can see a progression, right, in how it's possible to be once you change how you look at the world.
Well and truly, and there's something deeply rewarding about witnessing the moment a person, whether it's a child or adult, begins to see, learn, move, and experience the world with greater ease, confidence, and possibility, rather than being afraid of that change, stepping into that change and fully embracing it.
Right.
Because so many people think of vision as eyesight or sight, simply asking, "Can you read the letters on a chart or see clearly across the room?" Vision is so much more than that. Vision is how the visual system and eyes work together, but how the brain, body, breath, and behavior interlock with one another to process and respond to life. It's the way our eyes, brain, and body communicate with one another to support everything from learning to movement to emotional regulation and alchemy.
Mhm. Did you always feel that you were going to be in the field of vision therapy growing up?
No, and to be honest, I was unsure what I wanted to do because I'm sure you can hear how passionate I am about what I do.
Yeah.
I want to say I was roped into it at the right time because I had tried so many different occupations through work experience at school and reading books. I am an avid reader who has a full library of life on a variety of different topics. And I was really thankful that I didn't know what I wanted to do because it meant that I got to spend a little bit more time in the practice helping answer phones and file some paperwork while I was in my school years. And every now and then I might book a patient in for an appointment. And of course, you'd have a conversation with the people that were in the waiting room. Being as inquisitive as I was, of course, I wanted to know about all the different occupations and professions that were out there.
Mhm.
But once I started diving deep into the world of vision therapy and self-care, because some people refer to me as the queen of self-care because I run 3 to 4 times a week. I love breath work, which you'll soon hear more about.
Right.
I do meditative practices, and if something doesn't quite feel right in my body, I know that I've missed a part of self-care, soul nourishment, or self-love each day. And that allows me to connect on a deeper level with myself. But then it allows me to also connect on a deeper level with each of the patients I see, which is really special from both a therapist point of view, but a person point of view, because connection for us as humans is so important.
Mhm. Absolutely. Were all of those pieces part of your mother's practice, or did you bring those into the work?
No, they were already well and truly part of our practice, which is an extremely holistic practice. We have the option of using prisms and lenses to support how people see and move through space. Vision therapy was a part of the practice from early on. Syntonics or photosyntonic, functional syntonic light therapy comes into play with a number of our clients to give them some talk about seeing life through rose-colored filters, but we have a variety of different colors. Think of the spectrum of the rainbow that we can allow patients to look through to help how the visual system is working, but also how the visual system is guiding them through life alongside their energetic and emotional connection as well. And each therapy of vision therapy is building so much more than just eye skills and how a person is looking or seeing. It's
Mhm.
building resilience, confidence, and a deeper level of trust with their sensory system. Vision therapy truly is nervous system nourishment as a process of restoring balance, regulation, connection, and manipulation or maneuverability through the world.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of vision therapy practices are not as holistic as what you describe. Would that be your take on
I
it as well? And people don't perceive it that way. They perceive vision therapy as being going in and doing eye exercises, maybe being on a VR headset or, working with some of those other moving objects.
In their own way, each practice still has their therapeutic link to behavioral optometry and holistic, whether they realize how holistic what they're doing is or isn't,
Mhm,
because we really are tying in the eyes, the brain, the body, the nervous system, the emotional system, and it's how aware I feel that awareness is the first step in so many different practices and processes, and once that awareness is there, it actually opens up to not only the practitioner, but also the patient, the holistic level that's being explored.
okay, yeah. When you're talking about nervous system regulation, what does that look like in the therapy room or in life in general? Because I don't think people feel confident in their ability to regulate their nervous system all the time. Does that make sense?
That is quite true, especially in the hustle and bustle of society today. The visual and sensory systems are massive information highways that feed data into our autonomic nervous system. The nervous system influences the body. The body influences emotions. Emotions influence how deeply or shallow we breathe. Breathing influences our physiology. Our physiology then influences behavior, and behavior influences the relationship, not only the relationship we have with ourselves, but also the relationship we have with others. Because as humans, we are intricate living ecosystems that are consistently responding to life. But it's a little sad, even actually it's quite sad how modern life has disconnected so many people from that understanding and the connection to themselves, because we've become focused on pushing, producing, hustling, bustling, performing, and achieving, that many people no longer know what genuine safety, stillness, or surrender actually feels like within their own body. People are functioning while exhausted, smiling while overwhelmed or deflated, pushing through burnout, ignoring stress signals, suppressing their emotions rather than feeling their emotions, and disconnecting from intuition, which we all have within us.
Mhm,
And when these signals are ignored, the body will eventually begin whispering or sometimes yelling, "Please slow down." And
mhm,
if we don't listen to this whisper and let it turn into a yell, it turns into tension, fatigue, brain fog, overwhelm, anxiety, stress, digestion issues, insomnia, emotional reactivity, nervous system exhaustion, the body really is always communicating with us.
Mhm.
And I feel that one of the greatest lessons I've learned both personally and professionally is that symptoms are communication rather than betrayal. Our bodies are constantly adapting to what we have experienced, absorbed, suppressed, and survived through. This is why I'm deeply passionate about nervous system awareness and nervous system nourishment, because the nervous system is involved in everything: how we
Mhm.
breathe, how we sleep, how we process stress, how we emotionally regulate, how we connect, how safe we feel, how we learn, how we focus, how we grow, and how we heal.
Can you give us some examples of what you would do to help someone who's struggling to feel more regulated, um, have their whatever they're trying to do in the therapy room be more effective? Because I feel like a lot of people will say, "Well, I tried vision therapy, it didn't work for me." And they feel like they've given it their all, and they've done everything that they were told to do, and for whatever reason, they're not getting the results that they want.
Of course, because the visual system is so deeply interconnected throughout the body, but especially with vestibular processing, proprioception, posture, coordination, spatial awareness, sensory awareness, as well as the connection to the autonomic nervous system. When someone is experiencing a challenge of some kind, or there's a mismatch in how the pathways are communicating with one another, the brain expends enormous amounts of energy simply trying to process life. The lights might feel brighter, noises might feel louder, movement can be overwhelming, concentration becomes exhausting. So many patients arrive and feel as if they're failing at life. In reality, their nervous system is overloaded, exhausted, and doing the best it can to protect them in whatever way possible. And I believe that modern society mirrors this far more than we realize, because we're sensory beings living in an overstimulated world. There's too much information, too much urgency, too much noise, too much stimulation, and
Mhm.
far too little stillness. So I often invite them to be still for a moment, to connect with their breath, to breathe a little deeper and let them know that it is safe to do so. And then once they've had a moment of stillness, there's a variety of procedures and practices I might choose to do. And not all vision therapists might know about the breath, or choose to connect with the breath or the vagus nerve, but they might have the child jump up and down and shake their body around to help them to shake, shift, and then regulate their nervous system. They might lay down on the ground and close their eyes and start visualizing. They might choose a certain game to play to connect with the child or even the adult, because we all deserve and desire fun no matter what age we are. And humor can be such a great icebreaker, especially if there's unsureness that's going on.
Mhm. So it sounds like you choose the activity based on the person that is in front of you.
Yes, and I meet each patient exactly where they are. one of the patients that I saw a number of years ago now was unsure about new connections and conversations with strange people. And what is that therapist lady asking me to do? I'm just going to go hide underneath a table over here. So I could see that he was still watching and listening to everything that I was sharing with his mum and dad. So I started to demonstrate the exercises, and he was looking in the mirror at what was going on. So I saw that he was trying one or two of the exercises that I was showing, but the whole time he was still listening from his safe space, and then was able to go home and practice the exercises that I had demonstrated. And then week by week, we met each other on a different level. And depending on the emotion that is coming up for a child or an adult, I adapt the processes as I need. And that also in just means making something a little easier or a little bit more challenging. And if they're able already for the challenging level, congratulating them on that and saying, you just did such an amazing job. I think we're ready to move on to the harder level. Let's give it a go. And it might be a little bit tricky, but we're here helping one another, and let's do it together.
Mhm. Nice. So at that point, you've established the safety through a lot of activities that build on each other, it sounds like.
Yes, and starting on a foundational level is so important, no matter what age the patient is. We all see, feel, and hear things in slightly different ways. So it might even be shifting the language that I'm using, or shifting the position that I'm standing in, or getting down on their level, or doing something laying down instead of standing up, because when we're laying down, it brings us closer to gravity. So it means we don't have to think about supporting ourselves as much if we were sitting or standing up as well. So really adapting the procedure to the specific patient that I'm working with.
Do you ever see patients make progress and then lose that progress?
Often the progress will remain, because the body and the brain goes, this is how that feels, or this is how I can move through this position on the sports field, or this is how, it's way more comfortable if I hold my book at this distance rather than holding it really close to my face, or my hand's not getting as sore now that I'm holding the pencil or pen a little bit softer. So often the body and the brain and the nervous system especially picks up on when the body is breathing and moving with more grace and ease, and tends to stay with those processes or positions as well. And if there is a regression of some kind, it can be impacted by a variety of different things. It might be the nervous system becoming overwhelmed. It might be a separation going on, either by the patient's parents or even an external family member, or they might have a new teacher or change schools, or they might have really, really noisy next door neighbors that move in. So that creates some disrupt, but
Mm.
we can always come back to that level of safety and quiet, and revisiting the exercises that I provide to the patients. They can be revisited once a week, sometimes 5 times a week, or you might have a break for 2 or 3 months and then come back for more therapy in the office, or they might revisit the processes at home and balance the system out again.
Okay. Yeah. So all of the activities that you're talking about are designed to create safety in the body.
Well and truly, and I do quite a lot of work with the vagus nerve as well, and I feel that this is going to be one of the most fascinating aspects of this conversation. The vagus nerve is often referred to as the wanderer, as the vagus nerve really does wander throughout the whole body. It's one of the longest cranial nerves in the body and acts as a major communication highway between the brain and the body. It begins at the brainstem as the 10th cranial nerve. The vagus nerve travels through the face, the jaw, the throat, our vocal cords, our heart, lungs, diaphragm, digestive organs, and deep into the gut. And I know we think a lot about our brain, but we also have two other brains, one in our heart brain, and one in our gut brain. So often if our heart or gut brain are out of whack or not receiving messages, it can also throw out how clearly we're thinking or moving and digesting food as well. Because the vagus nerve plays a central role within the parasympathetic part of our nervous system. So we have our sympathetic or alert and active, and our parasympathetic rest, digest, repair, and restore side of the nervous system as well, which influences our heart rate, breathing, digestion, inflammation, emotional regulation, facial expression, vocal tone, engagement, and our ability to feel safe and connected. So when our vagal tone is strong, we tend to be more resilient, adaptable, and emotionally stable and available. While when vagal tone is compromised, we might be more vulnerable to anxiety, burnout, digestive issues, emotional shutdown or withdrawal, depression, and even chronic illnesses and survival states. And the vagus nerve is so remarkable because it helps create a sense of internal safety, a level of healing that is unable to occur without this safety being present, because the nervous system is always consistently asking one core question: am I safe? The answer to that question profoundly shapes human behavior, vision, recovery, and growth. And I feel that I know that one of the most beautiful aspects of this process is that we carry the most powerful regulation tool within us at all times: our breath.
Mhm.
The breath is an anchor of our existence. It is a constant companion from the moment we arrive earthside until the moment we take our final breath. We often overlook this power because it operates automatically on a subconscious level, but our breath is literally life force, prana or chi energy in motion. It serves as an anchor to the present moment, a grounding point we can return to during periods of overwhelm, upset, emotional intensity, physical discomfort, or sensory overload. Because the breath is so much more than a mere exchange of oxygen. It is information, communication, rhythm, and regulation.
So, do you think that a lot of vision therapy offices add breath work into the activities that they give their patients? Because I personally didn't experience that in my vision therapy office, but I had read the book Breath by James Nestor, and I started doing somatic yoga, and I started doing other things that incorporated some of those processes and ideas. that helped me when I was coming through my vision therapy journey.
Mm. Breath work has been around for eons and eons, and I think most therapists might look at how the patient is standing, how relaxed they are, or how tight they are, because the tighter we are and the tighter the nervous system is, the more rigid or robotic our movements are. So
Mm,
I'm sure that they'd integrate some type of breath or relaxation process into their vision therapy sessions, because when we breathe unconsciously in a short, fast, and shallow state, we signal to the nervous system that we need to stay alert, and we keep ourselves braced and stuck in protective survival states like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. However, when we breathe consciously, deeply, and with intention, the dialogue totally changes, because slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing communicates something entirely different to the body and lets the body know that it is safe to soften and open. Longer, slower, deeper exhalations directly stimulate the vagus nerve, helping to downregulate or deregulate the stress response from the
mhm.
inside out. So
Right.
beyond formal breathwork training or breathwork practices or pranayama techniques, even small ordinary practices such as humming, singing, chanting, gargling water, laughter,
Mhm.
and safe social connection can also stimulate vagal tone. While these moments might appear simple, they profoundly influence our internal state, gently shifting the body away from survival mode and back towards regulation, presence, and growth.
Mhm.
And this is why I love breath work so deeply.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to apply that to is when I'm driving and I start to feel anxious because traffic is not flowing as well as I want, or I'm not sure if I'm gonna get the right exit on the freeway, or I'm late, or whatever reason, and I start to feel this.
Frazzled.
Yeah, just not myself, and so then I just start taking my deep breaths in. Great, breathe in, hold, breathe out longer, all of that to just get myself into a more regulated state, and I haven't come to that naturally, and it hasn't been part of my practice during this whole time, right? This is more of a recent thing that I notice more when I'm dysregulated and
Mm.
use the tool that I've learned, and I
And it's
don't know
so
how many
beautiful.
people do that, because it's one thing to do a couple of breaths in the therapy room or have someone say, "Go home and do this," but actually applying it looks different.
Especially when there's those moments of overwhelm or feeling frazzled or not knowing, who am I? Where am I? Oh, wait, I'm in my body. My breath is in my body too. So that means that I can call on my breath and just stop and chill out for 5 breaths or 10 breaths or a whole hour of breathing, because there's so many. Well, we as humans so often say, I don't have the time. But we all have the same 24 hours in the day, and it's how intentional we are about utilizing that time. And you might have 2 minutes, or you might have a whole hour, or you might have a whole 5 hours where you can just sit in silence. But it's choosing a minute here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there, and a whole hour on another day. And the more we intentionally choose to connect with time, time really becomes one of our biggest allies as well. So rather than overloading the plate that the waitress is carrying with drinks and plates so that it wobbles and falls off, we might just have one or two tasks that need to do or choose to do tasks rather than, oh, I have to do this and then this and then this and then this. Huh. But then I don't have time for me at the end of the day or in the middle of the day. So even putting self-care into your planner so you can go, oh, okay, before lunch, I know I'm going to sit down at lunch, but I have 10 minutes to go for a walk in the fresh air and sunshine, or I have time to do 10 deep breaths, or I can stand and look at the majesticness of the sun shining in the air and let that energy fill my body so that I then have energy to continue through the rest of the day.
Yes, that is so helpful, so important.
I feel that I've become so passionate about this because I know these experiences personally. I mean, I wrote a whole book about them. But there was a time in my life when I lived almost entirely in survival mode, overworking, overthinking, overgiving, overdoing, and completely ignoring what I needed and what I desired. I treated rest like laziness, and slowing down felt like a failure until eventually my body asked me, well, actually screamed at me to listen more deeply. And breath work became one of my primary practices that completely transformed how the relationship with myself, not because it fixed me, because I wasn't broken in the first place, but because it softened me and invited me into a deeper state of surrender and flow. It helped me build enough internal safety to know that I had actually abandoned myself when I was busy surviving.
Mm.
Through deep breathing, I learned to trust my body, honor my intuition, and meet myself with greater compassion. What unfolded was not a process of becoming someone new, but
Mhm.
remembering who I had always been beneath the layers of protection, conditioning, and survival.
So you're talking about it in kind of broad terms, but what does it look like in practice when you said, okay, I'm at a breaking point. Now this is what I'm going to do so that I can come back to myself?
Choosing to put the time into the diary. So I think knowing that time was a friend rather than a foe really, really came into play. And even if I had 5 clients back to back and then a break between my next 3 clients, okay, that's my time when I'm going to take 5 deep breaths. Or that's my time when I'm going to visualize energy filling my body.
Mhm.
And that's when I'm going to open my heart a little more rather than letting it be closed and stay tight so that I can then flow with more grace and ease. Because by taking care of myself, I'm able to show up in a totally different way for all of my clients and patients and myself first and foremost, which then gives others the permission slip to do the same. Because when we speak out something that's on our mind, or when we share, oh, I'm not feeling crash hot today, that also invites others to do the same. Because the more open we are, the more space we tend to hold, but also the more we allow others to know, oh, Hannah's just a human. She's a person. She feels too. She thinks these thoughts. She has these challenges going on. And, oh, yeah, me too.
Right.
because I feel that Me Too is such a big part in the process, because I honestly believe that one of the greatest medicines in the world is feeling seen, heard, and understood, whether that's fully understood or partly understood. There's something profoundly regulating about hearing another human say, "Me too. I understand. You're not alone," because we as humans are deeply relational beings. This means that our nervous systems are constantly in relationship with and responding to the people, environments, and energy around us. We regulate through connection, we heal through safety, and we soften through trust and openness.
Mhm. So I feel like a lot of times patients are very focused on what exercise is it going to be that's going to get me to the goal that I have, and then there's frustration when it doesn't happen on the timeline that seems reasonable, right? And I'm thinking of an example where someone has worked for a long time to get 3D and to improve their 3D, right? And their therapist, their doctor put them into a multifocal lens, and that helped do certain exercises that, then became easier to do in 3D. But the fallout of that was not positive because then she started to experience dizziness, disorientation that way. So, can you speak a little to why that result came about and what you would do differently in your framework of tools that you use when you're helping someone?
Oh, there really is a toolbox of therapeutic gems that we call on, and we as humans are so different, not only with how we think and feel, but how we move through life and how we see life and interact with it as well. So I won't say there is a perfect tool, because what might be the the procedure or exercise for 5 patients might not be the one for the person that's in the therapy room, and letting the patient know, "Okay, it looks like it's going to take a little bit longer, but that's okay, because you know what? We've still got this, this, and this that we can try." Or, "I actually am so excited that I get to use this exercise with you, so I didn't even get to use it with the last patient." So letting them know that just because it's going to take a little bit longer, or the 5 things that we've already tried haven't quite worked, doesn't mean that that's the end game. But we're going to find something, or we hope that we can find something that's going to support what's going on, rather than going, "That's it. I've had enough. I don't want to try anything else." We can go, "Oh, yeah, let's give this a go." And we can experience and try it out together, because I actually really want to see how that's going to work. So you're on an equal path with the patient. So it's not that you as the therapist are unsure of where to go. It's that you're going, "Yeah, let's try this," or "Let's do that." Because, to be honest, there are a number of clients that come in, of a myriad of different ages, that I've tried this, and this, but, "Oh, this worked," or "This was the exercise," where I might have thought that exercise wasn't actually going to, achieve much at all, but that was the opener, and then things flowed from there. So life for us as an adult, not even being a therapist or a practitioner or a professional, really is an adventure, and it's just embracing it one step after the other, and knowing, "Here, we'll eventually get there. Might take a little bit of time, or it might take a short amount of time, or a long amount of time, but We'll get there in one way, shape, form, or it will eventuate.
Mm, okay. Well, I think the frustration is that it's been a long time, and then you get to a certain point, and then you feel like you're back 10 steps behind. I personally haven't experienced that, but my friend just called me in kind of frustration because this whole scenario was
Mm.
new, right? That
And that frustration is definitely valid and totally allowed to be there. And we're allowed to be frustrated or sad or deflated, but we're also allowed to go, hey, how amazing did I go when I did this exercise, or this exercise? Or how amazing was that I went for a 10-minute drive instead of a 15-minute drive? Or guess what? I climbed up an extra 2 stairs than what I could manage last week. So finding that joy and celebration in those little moments, not just in the grand moments as well.
So, Hannah, I love where we've been going with this, but I'd like to kind of circle back around to talking more about emotions and how our emotions are affecting how our visual function is in our bodies and what that looks like in relation to the book that you wrote. Can you share a little bit
Of
about that?
course. Yeah, that would be a pleasure because I have a variety of practices that I put into play, and those practices were pivotal in creating the safety of actually feeling and being rather than always doing and avoiding. Because I don't practice the rituals of breath work and journaling and running and moving my body and intuitive dance because life is always calm. But I do it because we as human beings are beautifully designed to move through different emotional states, different nervous system states, different seasons of life, and different energies. Regulation is not the absence of emotion. It's actually the capacity to remain connected to ourselves while we're moving through emotion. As the breath is an anchor that provides safety, but it's also a bridge that allows us to connect to the flow of life. I think that the distinction of knowing that regulation isn't the absence of emotion changed how I think about the breath and the emotional field. Because healing isn't just about building internal capacity, it's about the capacity to return to safety, the capacity to pause, and the capacity to support ourselves. And this is where emotional alchemy and self love are incredibly important. And one of the projects closest to my heart right now is my book, Untamed Self Love. That title carries the essence of everything I believe because untamed self love is not polished or perfect. It's not about pretending to always have it together. And it's certainly not about bypassing real human pain with forcing positivity. Untamed self-love is raw, compassionate, nervous system awareness. It's learning how to honor yourself as a human being rather than treating yourself like a machine that always has to be switched on. It's a daily devotion that reminds you your sensitivity is not weakness, it's strength. Your emotions are not flaws, they're there to be felt. Your nervous system deserves care and your body deserves compassion. Emotions are quite literally designed to move through us, not remain trapped within us. The word emotion stems from the Latin root emovere, meaning to move out, and is connected to the Greek interpretation, meaning energy in motion. When we continually avoid, suppress, numb, or disconnect from our feelings, that emotional energy doesn't simply vanish. It remains stored within the physical muscular structure, the facial tissues, and the autonomic nervous system. Over time, this chronic suppression contributes to physical tension, visual strain, emotional shutdown, and a deep disconnection from ourselves. Untamed self-love explores these themes through a tapestry of neuroscience, somatic body-based practices, attunement and nervous system nourishment, embodiment, and intuition. Within the pages of Untamed Self-Love are reflective journal prompts, practical tools, and soul-nourishing practices and rituals to make it an interactive experience for each reader, designed to cultivate deeper self-awareness, self-trust, self-compassion, and personal transformation. Because at the heart of this book is an invitation to return home to yourself, to slow down, to listen more deeply, to honor your inner knowing, and to create a life that is guided by both science and soul. And by being an interactive journey, it's a gentle call to stop abandoning yourself in the name of coping, performing, pleasing, or simply surviving, and to begin choosing yourself with greater presence, compassion, patience, and intention. Because true healing and growth often becomes prevalent in the moment we stop running from ourselves and start listening. It unfolds when the body no longer has to carry the weight of what the mind has been unwilling, unable, or unsupported to face. Because in that space, self-love becomes far more than just a concept. It becomes a lived experience, a daily practice, and a pathway back to wholeness and flow.
Could you give us maybe one little example of what a short practice would look like when you're
Yes, of
talking about
course.
that? Because
Yeah.
I've noticed that even if I do a small thing, like stop for a second and hum,
Mm.
just a few breaths of humming out the whole breath, you know, that it is very calming. And that's not something that I ever had as a practice before or that I even considered. And I helped my granddaughter do it one day when she was dysregulated. And I just think
Mhm.
it would be nice to instead of, only saying, "Oh, well, there are all of these things," and talk about them in
Of
kind of
course.
vague, broad terms,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
just give people something that they can do right now that will make a difference in the next 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever of their life to say, "Okay, this is an example that we can really grab hold of."
Yeah. So I want to invite you into a moment of intentional pause, a real conscious pause. Not the kind where we're sitting still physically while mentally scrolling through our to-do list. Not the kind where the body is resting while the nervous system is still sprinting at a million miles an hour. I mean a gentle, genuine, somatic pause. Wherever you are listening from right now, perhaps you're driving, walking through nature, preparing a nourishing meal, or lying in bed after a long day, I invite you to simply arrive here. Arrive here in the present moment. Unclench your jaw. Relax your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Soften your belly. and take one slow, deep breath in through your nose and a long, intentional exhale out through your mouth. Again, breathing in and breathing out, and breathing in and breathing out. Notice how your body responds to this practice, because that's what this conversation has been all about. The body, the breath, the nervous system, the sensory system, the vagus nerve, human protection and connection, and the deep remembering that we're not machines designed solely for performance, productivity, and profit. We as human beings are living, sensing, emotional, dynamic beings. And I truly believe that so many humans are craving permission to remember that we are human beings rather than human doings.
Amazing. Thank you for that reminder and for that practice. Do you have any final words that you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
I feel that if there's one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, that your body is not betraying you, your nervous system is never failing you, your sensitivity is not weakness. Your body adapts, protects, survives, and communicates all the time. Underneath everything I create is the core message that you deserve to feel safe in your own body. You deserve rest. You deserve softness. You deserve love and compassion. You deserve to reconnect with yourself, because when the body softens, you hear yourself again. You stop abandoning your needs. You stop overriding emotions. You stop living entirely in survival mode, because regulated humans create safer relationships, safer conversations, safer families, and safer communities. Healing often begins with the smallest moments. One deep breath, one conscious pause, one conscious exhale, one moment where the nervous system realizes, I no longer need to brace against life so tightly. Until next time, I encourage you to breathe deeply, move gently, protect your peace, honor your nervous system, trust your body, and know that the wildest wisdom has always lived within you. And every single day is a beautiful day to breathe deeply, connect meaningfully, move intentionally, flow with life, and think in ways that nourish both yourself and the world around you.
Great. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thank you for the invitation and for allowing me to share with you, because I thank you for being here, for sharing your presence, your energy, your breath, and your nervous system. And I'm so grateful for your time and for the time of your listeners, for their listening ear, and for walking this wild and wonderful path through life alongside me.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Healing Our Sight podcast today. I'd love to connect with you. You can leave a comment by clicking the link in the show notes. I love receiving your messages. You're also invited to join the Healing Our Sight Facebook group. Let me know what resonated with you and how I can better serve you.